Welcome to Take It from the Ironwoman. My name is Susanne Müller, your host and the Ironwoman. This podcast is about empowering yourself and others to make real changes in the world. You will hear from everyday, smart, sophisticated, hip people like you and me. Not everybody has to be an Ironwoman to impress the world. Together, we will learn from the sports and business leaders how you can become a more successful person as an entrepreneur or a leader. It's one step at a time, one day at a time. Take your steps now. Take your big steps now. Join me on this journey to success. Take it from the Ironwoman. We only have special guests, and today we go to the morning in Singapore with Birgitta. Very excited. Through my connection of Monica Kronbügel, we are now connected. Welcome, Birgitta. Maybe introduce yourself a little bit. What are you doing in Singapore and where are you from and what can we learn from you?
Hi, Susanne. To you, a very good evening. That is part of the life in international that you deal with the different time zones. So morning here and evening for you. Why am I living in Singapore? What am I doing here? I'm a lawyer. I'm partner with Luther law firm and head of the office here in Singapore, where we have like 90 staff covering the whole range of corporate commercial matters, with a team of lawyers from Germany and other continental European countries like France, Spain, Switzerland. So the whole variety of continental European countries is covered through a desk in our office here. Then, of course, we also have a team of Singapore lawyers who then cover the Singapore aspect of the matters. And we then support companies from Germany, Switzerland, France, etc., when they come to Singapore and the region with their business activities here, be it incorporation or setting up a network of distributors or the likes. That's what I'm doing here. And I do that now for about like 20 years here in Singapore. It's an exciting place to be.
When everybody hears Singapore, everybody says, wow, I would always love to go to Singapore. And when you're there, it's so small, but in a way so powerful. How is life in Singapore when you are living there? Because as a tourist, we all know life is totally different than when you're a local.
Yeah, that's true. Visiting country and being there a couple of days or weeks is, of course, you don't get the insight. But if you visit, you get a bit of a feeling for the city, the vibe that you get also if you stay just a short few days in a place. What is special about Singapore? It is super dynamic and it's ever changing. And the small size is basically also what makes it so wonderful and great, because they always have to reinvent themselves to be relevant and to be attractive for the people living here, for the companies that come here for doing business. Just to show you how dynamic it is and how this place is ever changing. When I came here, there was a population of about like 2 million, 2.5 million 25 years ago. Now we are reaching nearly the 6 million. So that's a huge change also in how the city develops, how the city planning works. They do a very long-term city planning, which is so that the space they have can be utilized to the absolute best. The mindset of the people is also that they embrace change. They don't get stuck in, we have always done it like that. They are totally open to new toys when and embrace them. And the government also supports the companies and the population in doing so by giving incentives, by supporting skilling. That makes it so exciting, dynamic. And they so far have always managed to stay relevant, remain an attractive place for business.
Is that true? I read somewhere that only a few people have a car in Singapore.
Well, yes and no. Life in Singapore is not cheap, but the really big cost items are indeed, car is super expensive here, and housing. And what they do is they regulate the cars on the street. They don't want to have a chaotic, jammed up city like we have in some other, like in Jakarta or in Bangkok at times. So they didn't want that, and because that doesn't help anyone. Instead, they built up fantastic public transport system. So the goal is nowadays that everyone lives maximum 10 minutes away from the next station, the next underground system or other public transport. I call commute to work by public transport, and so do many, many other people. Most commuters commute by public transport, but it's made easy and cheap. And then on the individual transport, it's really super costly. How it works here is that you have to pay an entitlement to drive a car on the roads of Singapore for 10 years. And the price for that entitlement that is tied to the car varies. It's an auction. It's auctioned off. It depends on how much demand is there. At the moment, the demand is high and the price is high. At the moment, we're talking about 140,000 Singapore dollar just to get that entitlement. You haven't paid a single dollar on the car yet. So that comes then on top. And then there's also high taxes on it. So you look at, I don't know, compared to like prices in Germany, it probably would like 3 times the price of the car that the car would be in Germany, plus then the entitlement to drive the car on the roads. But with that, it's still a lot of traffic, but it's manageable. So it's not collapsing. Business moves on. There's always the alternative of the public transport system, which is super. If I miss one train, the next one will come in 5 minutes.
Talking about climate change and also growing population is really a foresight. And we can only learn from Singapore how innovative they are and forward thinking. Yeah. And I'm always curious, so what are the latest trends that came from Asia? What do you see since you're at the pulse of innovative and creative things that are hitting us soon?
What you mentioned before and the climate sustainability issue, I wish they would have started earlier. But when they realize that there is a need or a topic that has to be addressed, then they go all the way and really change it quickly. And one is the building a shift from focusing on private commute to public transport, focusing on greenery everywhere. For example, if you now construct a building here, a bigger one, then the space that this building takes on the ground, you will have to find 3 times that space for greenery on the building. So that's why you have all these buildings nowadays that have either vertical green walls or on top, basically spaces between the stories that are totally greened up. Either you have to have the green walls and roofs, or you have to have solar panels. They really push it in this direction. Sustainability plays a huge role here. I hope it was the latest wake-up call. There were some other before when suddenly the supply chains broke down also on food. So everything moves to as much as they can in this small space. What can we do? What can we produce locally here? So you have these in-house farms, aquaponic farms, one area that they look at, but also alternative food sources, alternative proteins, meat from the lab. They promote cooperations then between the universities and startups in that space. Then another area, of course, is artificial intelligence and biotech in the widest sense. So there are clusters that where the government sees, hey, this is something that will be relevant in the future, and then they support this. Food tech, how do they support this? They build the infrastructure for it, for example. So they have buildings that is meant for food tech companies and alternative meat companies to experiment there. They have then a test kitchen, for example, with all the centrifuges and whatever you need to test certain things, which a small startup can't afford, but they put it there, and they can book it. Okay, tomorrow I want to have the test kitchen to try out this. That's how they help the startup ecosystem. Many areas that are happening and are relevant.
Yeah. You said you have been living there for 20 years. So I always ask the question, what do you do when you don't work? Except shopping and foodie, what do you do in Singapore?
Food is one of the wonderful things here. The population is mixed. So you have Chinese, Indian, Malay, Western, Australian, European influences. You find everything food-wise and culture-wise here. And it's one spot that is fantastic. That is really a lot of fun. And it's not only here in Singapore, but throughout Asia. When you meet someone, you don't ask, how are you? You ask in the Malay, it's sudah makan. Have you eaten already? Food plays a big role.
Yeah.
I'm an avid scuba diver. It's very here. What do you do underwater? It's much nicer. So that's how it started, and it's beautiful. Not necessarily directly around Singapore, because we have one of the busiest ports of the world. So the water while the quality of the water is quite okay. It's just totally with all the traffic, so it's not very clear. It's not so much fun diving here. You have a visibility maybe of 1 or 2 meters, but then you go to Indonesia or Malaysia or Philippines or Thailand, and there you have beautiful scuba diving. That's something I do. And over the years, you start with a normal open water diver, and then you go on, and you always look like, what's down there? So you want to go deeper and deeper and deeper. Over the years, then started technical diving to enable us to go a bit. And now the deepest I did was 130 meters so far.
Tell us more how that is. I don't know, diving. I'm afraid, I have to admit.
In the German language, we have this word abtauchen. In a way, you dive into, it's a beautiful way of relaxing and getting out of work, shutting off all the thoughts that you have in your head that trouble you, and then just chill, go down and enjoy the underwater from what you see, what you feel, but also this floating in the water. That's really super nice. This technical element that comes to it is also quite fun, because in order to be able to dive so deep, you need to really take care of your equipment, make sure that it works.
Yeah.
You can't just, if something fails, you can't just go up. So you have to deal with it down there. If you can't deal with it down there, then that will be your last dive, I guess. So you better make sure that your equipment is good, that your gases are okay. So in order to do those deep dives, you need to have various gases, various tanks. It's quite a bit of a equipment. So you need a lot of equipment to do that. But that's nice. So it's usually half a day of preparation before you then can do the dive then the next day. I'm often asked, so what is there to see that you don't see on top? It's in terms of fish life, in terms of coral, it's not so much different, actually. I mean, there's more to see at times, because especially when you go to places where there are a lot of divers, and the first 20 meters is where everyone goes. So maybe fish if they are not happy with the divers, then they go a bit deeper. So we see more of those, and it's more pristine and not disturbed. What I personally love to do is wreck diving. Exploring some historical wrecks. There's a lot of World War I or II wrecks in the region, quite of historical relevance. 2 of them are the Prince of Wales and the Repulse, British warships that were sent here to prevent Japanese from invading Malaysia and Singapore. So there was a big celebration when they came here to Singapore. Yes, you are saving us from the Japanese invading us here. Unfortunately, the next day they were sunk by the Japanese. So and now they are sitting there on the east coast of West Malaysia. And this is like super, super interesting, the history behind it, and then seeing the wreck down there. That's why we are doing that.
I think this is super exciting. And one question is like, so 150 meters, it's dark?
130.
130, okay. Well, maybe you try 150 next time. But 130, was it dark?
That's the good part of the waters here. Even at that level, it's not like it's cold. I wouldn't do it in the North Sea, probably. It's different. And it's still, you can still see. So it's not pitch black. You have a torch also for communication, so that you never do that alone. You always do that in a team, but it's not totally black. You can still see a few meters. Still, you have a torch just for safety reasons. And you see more, of course, if you have a torch. Sure.
And I'm always curious, what can you take from the diving 130 meters to go down and being in a team? What can you transfer into your job? Is there any parallels that you learn from diving?
Preparation is everything. So if you're well prepared, then that makes then the actual job you do, or there's no other way. You have to be prepared in order to do a good job. Just last week, I had a mediation. There were 2 disputed joint venture partners who fell out, and we tried to. So there was a big dispute, and it initially didn't look like they would come to an agreement, to a settlement agreement. But in the end, we managed to do that. It was a long mediation day, and preparation was key, because you really had to have all the facts together, all the numbers together, to really then bring come to the settlements. Preparation is key to achieve good results. And the other thing is teamwork. You can't, certain matters, you can't just do it on your own. You need to have a team. And whether it's then the real need to have it or what do you get out of it, it's so much better. The brainstorming you have, like when you do a deep dive like that, there's not one way you can do it. There's many ways. So who is in charge of what? Who carries which gas? So it's a lot of, and which gas do we carry? There's a lot of options you can choose, and there usually you have like a couple of hours on. You can have days on the discussions on that one. Because there's so many options, and this you can only do as a team. And with that, you share the knowledge, you get better ideas. That's always the dynamics. And three is even two. You have already a little bit of a dynamic, but with 3 persons, you really have a much proportionally better dynamic and better results. And at work, we wouldn't be able to support our clients if we wouldn't have that team. Lawyers who know where the clients come from the home jurisdictions, but then of course also the Singapore team. And then it's always like for each party, it's surprising still after I'm doing this now 20 years. And there's always some elements pop up, which are surprising what happens in the other jurisdiction, that certain things that work here wouldn't work in Europe or in Germany or France or Switzerland. And the other way around. Oh, okay. I didn't know that it would not work simply, that you only gain from teamwork.
And the surprise factor. So I just envision when you're down there and all of a sudden you're like, wow, you see an animal that you've never seen before. And the same goes with like when you say in the jurisdiction that you're like, oh, I never thought of that.
It's super nice if you see an animal that you were hoping to see, but haven't seen in a while, or it just passes by. School of eagle rays, or it's just awesome. And in work, it's more, I hope the surprise comes more in the preparation stage and not in the application stage.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we sit together. A simple example of the differences in the legal systems, not from the corporate world, from a normal living world. You move into an apartment, you sign the tenancy agreement, and then whatever, it rains through the roof, and you can't sleep in your bed. Where we come from, in Germany, then you can reduce the rent because, hey, it's not worth the amount that we agreed on because I have to sleep on the floor, I can't sleep in my bed. It doesn't have to be in the contract, this right to reduce the rent. And it isn't because we have this big book, the BGB, the civil code, where this right is written, whether you are a lawyer or not, so that you can reduce the rent. And this is the expectation that you also have when you come to Singapore. But there, it doesn't exist unless you have it in the contract. You wouldn't ask for it. The Singapore lawyer wouldn't tell you that, because for them, for the Singapore lawyer, it's normal that you don't have that right. So they wouldn't highlight to you, oh, by the way, normally we have that clause in that agreement, but here it is not in. They don't even think that there is such an expectation. So they wouldn't advise on, if you want to have that, you would have to have it as a clause in the contract. Of course, the landlord also here has to rectify it, and maybe then also there's a claim for damages or things like that, but it's not an automatism. In case of late payment, you sell something to someone, under the German system, you wouldn't have to have a clause in the agreement that provides for interest in case of late payment. Here, you would need one of those. So if then the German company gives the template of the terms and conditions to the Singapore lawyer, they wouldn't see such a clause and they think, okay, the company doesn't want that. And the company said, oh, I want that. Of course I want that. It's just not in the terms because it's in the civil code, so I don't have to put it in. So these are the things where we then sit together with the Singapore team and make sure that what the client gets and what the documentation we have from the client, because the rest is in the civil code. This is something that the Singapore lawyer wouldn't see. We have to tell them, okay, in addition to what you see here in black and white, it's also this is relevant and this is relevant and this is relevant. And then we come to a good contract or terms and conditions, and that would also work in this legal system here.
I just want to say thank you so much for giving us a glimpse into your life and also in the depth of your life, so to speak, with the diving. I'm deeply impressed. Wish you good luck with the diving. Let's talk again when you do the 150. Who knows when that is? But thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you so much to you, Susanne, to take the time. And thank you to Monica for connecting us.
Yeah. Thank you for a wonderful conversation. What are you taking away? Diving. This is something I will probably never do. Snorkeling is okay, but 130 meters is a bit deep. Take it from the Ironwoman. We have episodes every Monday. Come and listen to interesting story, interesting people. And Take It from the Ironwoman is also the book Global Business Coaching with Sports Parallels. Download it or get it in your local bookstore. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.